It's Jeff Pearlman, author of the new book, The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. You have done a ton of books, and I'm really interested because I've seen a lot of on social media. You have said that this might be the one that you are the most proud of. Why is that?
First of all, Logan, I think you're kissing my ass because I see behind your shoulder, Boys Will Be Boys, my cowboy book. So it's strategically placed, probably
Oh
bought at
yeah.
the dollar store, bought at the dollar store today just to put it there. I appreciate that.
No, it's one of my favorite books. That one specifically, growing up in Texas, a huge Cowboys fan, and it's one of my favorite books of all time.
Thank you. You have learned from that book never to shake Charles Haley's hand. Uh,
Yes.
uh, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, probably for you too, like I'm sure you're nostalgic about the Cowboys. Like for me, it's all about nostalgia, right? And I'm clearly older than you. And when I was growing up, like Bo Jackson was on my wall, he was the guy, the greatest, the biggest, the fastest, the most mysterious, the guy who accomplished something others didn't. And when I was thinking about a book to do after my last book, which is about the Lakers, I just thought, I really want to dive into this guy. I really want to understand who this person was, the mystique behind it, the mythology behind it. So it was really, really sort of rewarding. And it was the most research I put into a book. I interviewed more people than I ever have before. I wrote it during a pandemic, so I couldn't travel the way I had in the past. There was a lot more digging, a lot more paperwork. And, I feel really good about the end result.
You talked about the title of it is The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. I think that that's a big thing because I did not grow up. Like you said, I'm a little younger, did not see Bo Jackson in his heyday. But even to this day, someone who didn't see him play live or anything, he is this kind of larger than life figure. And I know that he was an idol to a lot of, of that generation. What do you think goes into the myth besides just him being kind of this weird two-sport athlete?
All right, I think there are two parts to it. Number one is the fact that his career ended so abruptly. So there's always, always, always a question mark. What could have been? Who could he have been? What would he have done? Would he have been Jim Brown? Would he have been Mike Trout? Like, what kind of player would he have been in these two sports if he didn't get hurt? And then the other thing is like, how old are you, Logan?
I'm 25.
So like, you've grown up where all your athletic contemporaries, every move is recorded, either on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. And Mike Trout isn't really going to surprise you. No one's going to be like, oh man, you should have seen this time, because you can see it. Like, you can see everything. If Mike Trout eats McDonald's, someone's in McDonald's videotaping Mike Trout. Oh, look, there's Mike Trout. With Bo Jackson, there's so many things. Like, just as an example, I write about the first night baseball game at the University of Georgia during Bo Jackson's junior year. And it's the first night game, first time they have lights at the field, Foley Field. And in his second at bat, he hits a home run that smashes into the light fixture. Okay. He follows that up with two more home runs. It's one of the craziest things ever. And nobody recorded the game, right? So like nowadays that happens, everyone records a game. There's 100 people or 100,000 people with cell phones and, oh, Bo Jackson, can we get a selfie after the game and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's all just mystique. So for me, the challenge is you got to interview a million people. You got to try to figure out how it happened. Another example, like, I opened the book with a plane flight the Chicago White Sox took in the early 90s, where the plane was going down. The plane is on fire, and Bo Jackson comes out of the cockpit, right? He's in the cockpit, and he's like, don't worry, everyone, it's going to be okay. Now, I interviewed 20 members of the White Sox, and I got that story. Nowadays, weird as it sounds, even with a plane going down, someone on the White Sox would record it, and maybe Bo Jackson didn't look so heroic on video. Maybe he was kind of scared too. You just don't know. And that's the whole mythology about him, is he did all these things, but we didn't see them all.
So Bo Jackson, you can also put superhero on his.
Oh, have you seen him climb the wall? I mean, he is a superhero, man. Go on YouTube and look up Bo Jackson wall climb. It's the craziest thing ever.
You mentioned the interview process. Did you get to interview Bo? I know a lot of times writers don't get to interview their subjects.
So the short answer is no. The long answer is shortly after I got the book deal, I sent Bo a couple of my other books and a letter. And look at that cowboy cup you're drinking out of. And he called me, and he was like, hey, this is Bo Jackson. And I was like, hey, Bo. And he's like, I'm driving to get my wife a salad. I want to give you a call. And he was super nice. And he said, I got no problem with you writing a book, but I'm not going to help you. A lot of people have wanted to write Bo books over the years. I'm just not interested, blah, blah, blah. It's nothing personal, but it's just not for me. And I said, okay. And then I interviewed 720 people. Like it inspires you to dive deep and to go harder and to go longer and to get everything you can. So
If you had two questions to ask him, what would you have asked?
only two?
Only two.
This is a top of the head question, but I mean, I do think it's interesting. I would really want to probe. I'm not good with just two questions, but I really want to probe this idea of loss. Like you basically have to get a hip. You do have to get a hip replacement. You were this Adonis. I mean, you were Mike Trout combined with Eric Dickerson or whatever running back. You were both of those. And all of a sudden your hip is yanked out and you don't have it anymore. And I am fascinated by what was it like to just lose your superpower? Like you lost your superpower. You basically Superman with the necklace of kryptonite around your neck and you can't take it off. And that's you. So, I mean, number one, I would love to know what that's like. And then number two, like I'm really fascinated, really, really fascinated by his time at Auburn University, which was super, super white, super, super conservative. And here's this, poor black kid from Bessemer, Alabama, showing up on the scene, having never seen anything like this before. I would love to hear more about that transition and what that was really like and the pain and the difficulty in the home. He almost quit the football team his freshman year. He was at the Greyhound station waiting to take a bus home after the Georgia game and didn't do it. But he was really heartbroken and missing his family.
I think a lot of the time, like loss is a pretty big theme in number one, a lot of your books and things that I've read, but just in these sports figures in general, Tiger Woods and all that. So why? Because I know that before he was drafted, right, in college in Auburn, he was leaning baseball. Why was he leaning baseball over football when, I mean, you win a Heisman Trophy in football, but you're leaning towards a baseball career? Why was he more baseball oriented?
All right, so here's what happened. He wasn't necessarily. He played baseball, football, and ran track at Auburn. And he was the number one pick in the 1986 draft by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what happened is when Bo was a senior at Auburn and he was playing baseball, his football season was over, he wins a Heisman, he's now on the baseball team. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers send the team plane, or really the owner, Hugh Culverhouse, the owner of the Buccaneers sends his plane to pick up Bo and fly him to Tampa Bay for a physical before the NFL draft during baseball season. And then they fly him back. And Bo Jackson is late for practice for the game that night because he's on this plane. And the coach at Auburn, Hal Baird, asks him, where's Bo? And he says, oh, he flew to Tampa on the Buccaneers plane to have a physical. And the coach is like, please tell me you're fucking with me. And he's like, no, he did. And that cost him his baseball eligibility. You could not do that. You couldn't accept a flight from a team. And he always blamed, number one, the guy who was kind of representing him as an agent, even though you weren't allowed to have an agent, and the Buccaneers. He thought the Buccaneers deliberately ruined his baseball eligibility so they could negotiate. So as soon as that happened, and then the Buccaneers still drafted him number one, even though he basically said, screw the Buccaneers, he basically was like, you're dead to me, and told the Royals he wanted to play for them. The Royals drafted him in the 4th round, and he signed to play baseball.
Do you think that today, I think that right now, a lot of youth sports, we see specializations at like 12 years old, and it's kind of ridiculous. If today Bo is playing, you can't, in today's age, you can't do two sports. I don't think that it's possible at this stage to kind of do that. Do you agree with that? Do you think that Bo would have tried if he's in 2022 and he's playing both sports?
I mean, generally, I would agree with you. Because it's funny, like he came up in rural Alabama, and a lot of his training as a youth really came in the way sort of, I grew up, I'm 50, so I grew up in rural New York, right? And you would play kill the carrier with your friends, and you play tag around the house, and you'd be jumping over fences, leaping over ditches, blah, blah, blah. So that was his real athletic roots, is that. That doesn't happen anymore. Some AAU coach would have noticed him or some travel team baseball coach would have noticed him at a young age, or some football team. They'd say, you got to train year round. You got to devote yourself to this. We're going to hire a trainer for you. Some private school, even though he was dirt poor, would have swooped him up and pretended they were giving him an academic scholarship, and they would have put him on. and he would have been playing for some modern day blah 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 academy. And you're probably right. The only thing I will say is players are much more empowered now once they reach like a guy like LeBron James with that level of power. If 10 years ago, when it was possible, he said to the Cavs, like, I want to try out for the Cowboys. I want to try out. I want to see if I can be a tight end with the Cowboys. They would have had to let him because he's the most powerful guy in the NBA. So it is possible. It's just unlikely. And we don't allow kids to develop the way we used to, which sucks.
What do you think? The other two-sport athlete that kind of comes to mind is obviously Dion, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think the difference between Dion and Bo are when they're kind of this idea of playing both sports? And I know Dion didn't have like the career I think that Bo did in either. He obviously Hall of Fame football career, baseball career, hit or miss. I mean, Bo was really good at both of these. He almost ran for 1,000 yards in one of his seasons in the NFL. He was good at this.
I mean, Dion had a much better NFL career than Bo. Bo had a better baseball career than Bo. Yep. And Dion, I think, so Dion, when Bo was playing, when Dion came up with the Yankees, and Bo's initial reaction was he freaking hated Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders was really cocky. He talked a lot of trash, kind of talked some trash about Bo Jackson. I mean, they're friends now, but a long time ago. And Bo was really sort of turned off by it because Bo is very truculent and quiet and go about your business. And it's not about you, it's about the team. So number one, Dion was much, much, much more flamboyant than Bo Jackson. And I also think while they both had ridiculous speed, they were I can't say complete opposites, but they were really, Deion Sanders was all about shiftiness. He combined speed and shiftiness. And Bo Jackson combined speed with bullishness. Like Bo Jackson was going to run over you. Deion Sanders was going to take these looping turns around the bases, and it was going to be dynamic and explosive, kind of like Ricky Henderson. And Bo was more like a truck.
He's Jeff Pearlman, the author of The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. You can go buy that today. Mine is on its way. Super excited. I think that number one, what you're doing is great. And just getting out and talking with a bunch of people. I've long admired your writing. So this is pretty cool stuff here. I kind of want to know, you touched on it. This is more towards you, not necessarily the book, but when you're talking about writing a book, I'm fascinated with this. You said that you were interested in Bo Jackson, right? That after you wrote the 3-Ring Circus, you go into this. How do you decide? I mean, is it just, do you already have kind of in mind, like, oh, that's an interesting story that maybe I'll hit later on, or how do you kind of go through that process as a writer?
So you start thinking about it when the other book is kind of wrapping, like 3-Ring Circus is coming to an end. I start thinking, what can I do next? What can I do next? I'll talk to my agent, but I guess this is going to sound weird, right? But it's like Bo Jackson is iconic. Okay. Bo Jackson is an icon. He is a legitimate sports icon. And there's a difference between a sport great and a sports icon. And it's almost like you know it if you see it. And the example I use is I wrote a book about Brett Favre called Gunslinger. I think I see it over your shoulder. Is that Gunslinger?
Yeah, all three of those are right there.
Okay. So thank you. So I appreciate that. So Brett Favre, I mean, who's just scum of the earth now, but I'm just saying, like, iconic. Like, he is an icon. And he played at the exact same time as Ken Griffey Jr. was playing baseball. And you have these two guys with very parallel careers. They were known for certain markets. Griffey was mainly Seattle. Favre was mainly Green Bay. They're with their teams for a long time. They are all-time greats. They're Hall of Famers. Why is Brett Favre an icon and Ken Griffey Jr. is really just a great, great player? I don't know. I don't know. But I think that's true. Like, I think a Favre book far outsells a Ken Griffey Jr. book. And I can't quite tell you why. And it's like, you have to try to find topics that touch people, that move people, that there's a reason they're going to want to pick up the book, that this person wasn't just an athlete, but someone who did something to them, who inspired something in them. And I feel like Bo Jackson was kind of like a Disney movie, or like watching a really good explosion take place in a film. It's like, there's something about him that moved people. So when I find someone like that, I think, number one, would I enjoy spending 2 years of my life devoted to that subject? Number two, has it been done and done well before? And number three, does it have a chance of selling? You never know if it's going to sell, but does it have a chance of selling? And I kind of thought Bo Jackson hit those criteria pretty well.
Um, Bo Jackson, iconic, especially during his time, but you kind of said it like Dion was a showman. It doesn't seem like Bo was. How did he take to kind of the publicity that he had? I know every 12-year-old boy had the iconic poster in their room at that time. How did Bo kind of deal with that stardom?
First of all, my daughter still has that poster in her dorm at
Perfect.
San Diego. Uh,
Perfect.
yeah, means I'm a good dad. And he he hated dealing with the media, but he liked people knowing he was great, if that makes sense. Like he was awful with the media, like really bad. He was one sentence, two sentence, make you wait a long time. Just wasn't comfortable. He was also a kid who grew up with a severe stutter in poverty, wearing socks or his sister's hand-me-down sneakers to school. Like he wasn't comfortable in that world. And I think sometimes we have to realize that people aren't always made for the spotlight. And it's unfair to expect that once you sign a big contract or you're wearing a snazzy uniform that you're comfortable in the spotlight. He wasn't. That said, he was very much aware of his greatness and his societal importance. And like he never shied away from being the face of a Nike campaign. He never minded the money of the Nike campaign. He loved the Bo Knows ads and the Bo Knows campaign. He just wasn't good in that kind of one-to-one, hey, Bo, can I get you for 5 minutes to talk to you about that home run? He didn't really want to talk about the home run.
You talked about it. This brought up something you were talking about, like Brett Favre versus King Griffey, right? Do you think that to be kind of a legend that you were kind of referring to, you either have to be super, super flamboyant, like a Muhammad Ali, a Deion Sanders, or you have to be kind of mysterious, like a Tiger Woods and Bo Jackson, where you don't get a lot of information about them at the time? Do you think that those are kind of your two? King Griffey's kind of like right here, like he's not super big, but everyone kind of knew what he was.
I mean, it's really hard to say. That's not a bad definition. It's just like I wrote a book about Walter Payton, the Chicago Bears. And there's something about Walter Payton that I considered iconic. Like, and I don't think Barry Sanders is. And Barry Sanders ran for more yards than Walter Payton.
Yeah.
But why is Walter Payton an icon? Is it because he died young? Maybe. It's probably part of it. Doesn't hurt. Would we be so fascinated by John F. Kennedy if he'd served 2 terms?
Not a
No.
chance.
No. So there's something about young death. I know that sucks. Same with like a guy like Tupac. If Tupac were a 52-year-old rapper now, we might view him the way we view Eminem or Jay-Z, like a great rapper, but we wouldn't be like, oh, I need to know everything about Tupac and buy his t-shirt. So there's something about that, the mystique of a young death. I don't think you have to be flamboyant, but one way or another, you just have to move people in a certain way beyond, wow, that was an amazing home run. Like you have to spur something in people one way or another. And, Bo Jackson is still alive. He's 60 years old, but there is the mystery almost of a young death, which is his career ended right when it was starting. He was the greatest athlete who ever lived, and it lasted for such a short period of time. So in a lot of ways, there are probably some decent parallels to a guy like him and a guy like Walter Payton.
Yeah, and Bo still kind of stays under the radar. I mean, Barry Sanders is at Lions games and like still out in the public, and I don't think Bo is as public facing like you kind of mentioned.
I mean, if Barry Sanders retired young, which he did, and then vanished, he might be an interesting book. But I do, like, I've had people say to me, suggest a Barry Sanders book. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just don't know how many people really care. Also, he played for shitty teams, which doesn't help. Bad market doesn't help. Like publishers will ask you, like, well, Detroit isn't the biggest market for blah, blah, blah. Where else did he play? Well, he played at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Wow. Those
Stillwater,
are
great. Yeah, it's great. Right. He's Jeff Pearlman, the author of The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. I'm super excited to get into it. You can order it wherever. I mean, I'm getting mine off Amazon, wherever. I know that Jeff has a website you can order it on, correct?
Sort of. You can just go to Amazon.
Okay. Go buy it. I'm excited. Jeff, thank you so much for coming and talking to this book. And I'm super excited to get into the life of Bo Jackson.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want you to know now you can take those books back to the dollar store and sell them back. I just want you to know.
Hey, I'm telling you, you're one of my favorite authors. And so I'll tell you, this is a little off topic. Three Ring Circus. I was mesmerized by the Kobe rape conversation. Because I don't really pay attention to that when I was young. Like I didn't. And so that was kind of the first time that I got a lot of that information. And I was mesmerized by that whole
I thought
period.
it was super fascinating. And yeah, and super awkward once he died, having to talk about it. It became a very awkward thing. And I just want you to know also, of all the Tyler, Texas-based podcast hosts I've spoken with today, you are by far the best, by far.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those kind words. I'll let the guy up the street know, so he can he can
Hang his head
really,
in shame.
yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you, Jeff, so much.
All right, take care.